in the last segment, we were talking about Afghanistan, and we looked at it from an apolitical perspective with Sebastian Younger, and the way he covered that war with a specific platoon, et cetera. Now we're going to take a little bit more of a political perspective on it. Is it working, et cetera? Derrick Crowe from Brave New Foundation is going to join us to do that. First, Derrick, welcome back.
Thanks. Good to be here.
All right, great to have you with us. Derrick, before we talk to you, I want to run a little video you guys put together on Marja, and then come back and talk to you about that and the general war. So let's watch.
In southern Afghanistan, the small farming district of Marja has become a gauge of progress in the war. In February, NATO forces drove out the Taliban, and the hope was it would serve as a model for other military operations. Instead, violence has returned to Marja.
Does it matter to you that Petraeus is now the big boss rather than the pistol? To be honest, Oren. Where's he coming from? Is that direct north or northeast?
دلته موږ ته دا مشکلات شته چې د ورځې هم دغه مرین قواوې راځي په سر مو کڅوړې اغوندي چې ګیر مو کې د کور بغل ته مو پټاو شي د شپې طالبان راځي وایي تی ویل د هغو سره همکاري کوي هغه ملالۍ
I think that we've seen a steady progress in Marja, and I believe that we've seen a steady increase in the support of the people for the government of Afghanistan.
All I can hear is the snap of gunfire everywhere.
According to a report in the Washington Post, there have been more U.S. military deaths in Marja this month than in the first month of the operation.
All right, now Derrick Crowe is with us from Brave New Foundation. Derrick, first let me ask a question that I pretty good sense of where you're going to go with this, but how's Marja going?
It's not going very well. I think what you see in the video that you just showed was that even though military folks have been deployed in a PR push lately to try to convince folks that it's improving, the simple fact is in June, more U.S. troops died there than in the first month of the campaign. And there was a new report out from the Afghan NGO Safety Office, and they track security incidents around the country. It shows that Helmand province, where Marja is located, is the most violent province in the country. So despite the hype, I mean, like we showed in the video, they've just dismissed the district governor that was the head of the, much advertised government in a box. It's just not going well, and there's really no way they can spin it from the perspective of any kind of metric you want to look at as far as how troops are doing and how the security situation is going.
Right, but Derrick, to be fair, a couple of things there. Number one, well, you're going to go to the most violent area if you're going to do an offensive, right? So does that make sense to some degree?
Well, I mean, of course they're going to want to push in from the perspective of the folks who think there's a military solution here. They wanted to have kind of a showcase piece, like a proof of concept for the broader counterinsurgency strategy. And keep in mind, Marja isn't anything approaching what we think of as a city. It's a collection of collections of buildings kind of scattered around a particular area. And it was a Taliban stronghold. But keep in mind, this was supposed to be the dry run for the Qandahar operation. And it's been months now, and we're seeing troop deaths actually spiking here. So if that's progress, I don't know how they're going to use that as a model that's going to have any sort of success in Qandahar.
Right, but if we do more engagement, aren't we going to have more casualties? Isn't that supposed to be part of the plan?
Well, if you look at the Afghan NGO Safety Office's report, they have a chart that we posted on Rethink Afghanistan's Facebook page that shows the trend in violence. And the interesting thing about that trend is, of course, it's seasonal, but those peaks are always higher every year and the troughs are always higher. But the thing about that chart is it tracks security incidents around the country independent of those incidents initiated by the international military force. So what you're seeing around the country is broadening attacks from the insurgency that's not necessarily tied to having more offensives launched from our end. And that's actually what the NGO Safety Office said, was that what's happening is they don't buy the idea that this is things getting worse before they get better. It's actually just a continuing trend of things getting worse. And when we have more troops, they get worse exponentially.
And of course, one of the main problems is what I always go back to with what Matt Haass said, our former official there that resigned in protest. He said, they're attacking us because we're there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, obviously that's part of the problem. And but a second clue that it's not going well, despite all the ideas of, well, you're supposed to get more violence, et cetera, is that they've delayed Qandahar, right? I mean, Marja was supposed to be easy. Then we were supposed to go to Qandahar, which they knew to be difficult. How much have they delayed going into Qandahar?
Well, it's indeterminate, I think. They're saying that there's this rising tide to kind of fudge having a D-Day type operation with Marja, because you're right. This was supposed to be the thing that we did to prove that the strategy could work in a place that wouldn't be as strategically challenging as Qandahar. And to go back to Matt Haass' point, what the NGO Safety Office says in their report is all we've succeeded in doing is dragging the locals into an ever-escalating cycle of violence. And there's just no way you can justify saying that is progress being made when the strategy itself, the entire counterinsurgency strategy itself, is predicated on protecting the population to switch their support to your side.
Derrick, I'm going to say something a little questionable here.
Sure.
But as I was watching your video, one of the things that struck me is there's no way in the world that an average American could begin to tell the difference, let alone an average soldier in the war, between an Afghani who's Taliban and an Afghani who's not Taliban, right? And
well, yeah, I mean, they don't wear a uniform. That's and so you get. That's one of the problems is that you perceive a threat when you're in a hostile environment at a heightened level, and I'm sure that contributes to the civilian casualties in Afghanistan.
And this is disturbing and wrong, and I'm not suggesting you do it, but it would work if you just did a video where you showed a whole bunch of Afghanis. Like in that video, they're the good guys. If you showed them to an average American, my guess is they would say, "Oh, those damn Taliban," and they said, "No, those are the guys we're protecting," right?
Yeah. And
so
that's one of the things too. I mean, a lot of folks' reaction when we get negative reactions to showing those kind of interviews, when people say, where we have locals just, give their kind of man on the street interview about how things are going in Helmand or around that region. Some people say that there's this strange, almost unconsciously racist reaction that they say, well, they're lying. Of course they'll say that. But those are the guys that were supposed to be there to win over. And if they're telling a guy, another Afghan with a camera, by the way, that's not some guy from, West Texas out there interviewing them. It's another Afghan they're interviewing them. It's a member of their community that we've trained with a little flip cam. And if they're telling that person that, we've got a long way to go if our idea is to win hearts and minds.
All right, we're talking to Derrick Crowe from Brave New Foundation. And Brave New Foundation, of course, ran this and has been running this program of Rethink Afghanistan. And then we have this huge Newsweek cover this week, Rethinking Afghanistan. So, Derrick, was there a little feeling of mission accomplished?
Well, our joke on the Facebook page was that they owe us a nickel. Like every time Rudy Giuliani hears the word 9/11, the joke is he charges you a nickel. And with us, when we hear Rethinking Afghanistan, that's our joke. It was very gratifying. We were very happy to see Newsweek taking that tack because that's really where I think a lot of Americans are. This was one of those wars that people didn't really have to think too much about, or didn't take the time to think about when it started, because there was this sort of easy mental connection you could make between we were attacked, we have to respond somehow. But now, as folks are seeing kind of the fruits of 9 years of what we decided to do in response, there is this moment where people are taken aback and are able to really focus in. That was one of the things that happened when General McChrystal was dismissed, or his resignation was accepted, was that immediately you saw people and blog coverage and Twitter feeds light up about Afghanistan. And now we're at a point where 54% of Americans, according to CBS, favor a timetable for withdrawal, and as many as 42% in Pew's recent poll say that they want troops out immediately. I mean, that's a sea change in American public opinion.
And the Bloomberg poll, where 58% say it's a lost cause, over 60% say come July 2011, we got to go. I don't care.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't care. They say we literally don't care what the situation is. We got to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a striking number. And that really shows you that the politicos there in D.C. that are hand-wringing about, John McCain's uncertain trumpet remarks about, our timetable favoring the enemy or something like that, that really misreads American public opinion, and folks love this war imposed to their peril.
All right, so Derrick, but when we get into the actual Newsweek story, well, then it gets a little interesting, right? Because the cover is Rethinking Afghanistan, but Richard Haass, who worked in the Bush administration, wrote it, and he had the beginning of the article is fascinating because he says, well, you know what, we never really gave a damn about Afghanistan, and we were smart that way. I mean, he's partly saying that because he pushed for more activity in Afghanistan when he was within the Bush administration. He's saying, look, now Obama is the one who escalated this war, so Michael Steele is right. It's Obama's war. Now, do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I mean, it is kind of convenient, like you say, that suddenly Republicans want to push this all on the Bush or on the Obama administration. There's bipartisan culpability here. I mean, this is the second administration in a row that has just taken counterinsurgency as gospel. And, of course, the fruits of the Bush administration would be kind of this cult of counterinsurgency, which is the strategy that we're pursuing there. So there's a little bit of pot calling the kettle black when members of the Bush administration criticize folks for launching a counterinsurgency. But that said, Obama has tripled the number of U.S. troops in country. And that is a definite choice made by him that he should be held accountable for.
Yeah, well, that's a very fair point. So, but now, finally, when we get to Haass's suggestions as to how to get out, right, because we got to rethink Afghanistan, he says, look, if we get out right away, the Taliban will definitely take over. So instead, what he seems to be advocating is a decentralization where we begin to fund different smaller local tribes, et cetera, rather than the central government. Now, does that make some sense to you, or do you think he's got that wrong?
Well, I think that there are pros and cons either way, I would have to say, because first of all, his premise is a little flawed. It's not true that if American troops started leaving tomorrow that it's a foregone conclusion that the Taliban will take control of the country. I mean, regardless of the very negative progress reports that we get about the progress of the Afghan National Security Forces, there are more of them. They're better armed, and they've had the benefit of some training. And one of the things that he gets to in that article that I think does have some validity is that this war is not going to just end simply by Americans walking out and shutting the door. There does need to be some thought given to a reconciliation and a reintegration process. And the United States, that's where the rubber hits the road. That politics is how this war will end, not a military solution.
But Derrick, so let me press on that in the end here, which is that not a bad strategy, saying decentralization, let me go pay these guys off like we did with the Sunnis in Iraq, go buy the local guys. I know I'm not going to get all of them, and I know a lot of them are going to trick us and will use the money against us, etc. I get all that, but overall, let them fight the Taliban, and we'll see you later, alligator.
Well, the difficulty with that, and again, there's not a perfect solution in Afghanistan by any means. I mean, we've got 9 years worth of really bad decisions leading up to a host of not attractive choices. But I mean, one of the problems with that is that if our presumption is that we are there to support anything remotely approaching a popular government in Afghanistan, devolving support like that down to just the local governments, really undermines the protection or the constitutional government that we're supposedly supporting there. And by doing that, the difficulty is that you might end up empowering just a series of local warlords. So, there is, but
there's no question you would.
There's not problems with the Karzai government, right? Like, supporting that as a solution is also highly problematic. But I think it's a little. I think he sugarcoats that choice just a little bit.
I hear you, and you would be supporting local warlords, and some of them would be heinous. Some of them would use the money against us. And what's so terrible about our situation in Afghanistan is that's, at this point, might be the best option. Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing about Afghanistan. But the most important thing, I think, for the United States to be paying attention to is when that reconciliation process and reintegration process is when those start taking place. How we support and whether we support certain aspects of that process are the most important components of the political strategy. For example, the rights of women in Afghanistan. Human Rights Watch just put out a report talking about the way in which there's the danger. Folks are raising the issue of whether women's rights are going to be sold out in this reconciliation process. And so there's this real need for the Obama administration to really take this by the horns and make sure that when we support a process, it's a process that empowers women as actual decision makers.
I know, but the ship is but Derrick, the ship has sailed on that. We can't have it both ways. We can't want to get involved more and empower women and empower human rights and empower the constitutional government and leave at the same time.
Well, but that's the thing. How we leave is important, though, and I'm not, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we should dig further in when I say that. But what I'm saying is that when we do begin to withdraw troops, and as this reconciliation process is happening, those are issues that aren't necessarily being given the sort of attention that they need. And it is important that women. The Karzai government by far is not a friend to the women of Afghanistan. That makes it very important for us as we start to even fund some of these processes that we do say that the women's advocates in Afghanistan, like the Afghan Women's Network, need a seat at the table, a meaningful seat at the table in those negotiations.
Look, if you ask me, if in 2001 we had gone in and given microloans to Afghani women all over the country and had been doing that for the last 9 years, we would have done only 100 times better than this war that we've conducted.
Absolutely.
Now, having said that, okay, I've lied. This is my third last question to you. So, Derrick, let me throw a curveball at you, okay?
Sure.
So, if it was up to you, when would you have left Afghanistan? 2002, 2004? When would you have left?
Well, I think that's not really a fair question because, like you say, it's a curveball. I think the solution would never have been to launch a conventional military invasion to try to track down a handful of terrorists. I think that the idea that and that idea evolved back and forth with the Iraq War as we were, quote unquote, learning lessons about counterinsurgency. This counterinsurgency strategy kind of took on this kind of gospel image, and I think that it's kind of like that old movie War Games. The only way of winning is not to play this game. Every time Al-Qaeda launches an attack, no matter how spectacular, we can't respond with a military occupation of a country. That's a surefire way of wrecking the United States.
All right.
And the more troops we add in with a conventional military force, and we've seen this with statistics throughout the war, the higher the level of conflict has grown in Afghanistan. And that should have been a clue a couple of years ago that adding more troops in wasn't the solution, but we're just not learning that lesson.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Derrick Crowe from Brave New Foundation. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. It was great.
All right, we'll come right back. Young Turks.